Kid. Each summer, we'd visit a beach in southeastern North Carolina near the small tobacco farm where my dad grew up. My favorite time in the water was late afternoon when everyone else was napping, sipping whiskey, or getting ready for dinner. I'd float in the ocean, peaceably immersed in its immensity. For much of my childhood, I felt out of place, but in these moments, I knew my belonging. We also spent several weeks each winter skiing in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Again, I'd look for opportunities in late afternoon to part from the crowd and find a place on the mountain, somewhere to view the Rockies in solitude. The vastness filled me with a joy that was almost unbearable, and often it was. On the flights home to Maryland, I'd feel a great grief and sometimes cry, an ache I wouldn't shake for weeks. For years, I lacked a language and a practice to appreciate how intimately the earth's wildness calls to me, how my life is enfolded in nature, how my being belongs in the whole great earth. As we reflect today on the Buddha's awakening, I invite us to notice, as tradition tells it, that the earth quickened and witnessed the event, and to recall those moments in our lives when nature similarly spoke her loving interrelatedness through us. The Buddha's quest to awaken took place within a wider spiritual movement. He left his life of pleasure and ease and abandoned his family to join shramanas, wandering seekers who challenged Vedic culture and tradition by renouncing household life and experimenting with various states of consciousness, often through severe asceticism. Shramanas were akin to the Greek philosophers and mystics of the Axial Age. These seekers gathered around teachers who taught different yogic practices and philosophies. And these communities of renouncers engaged in debates. They lived by way of alms. Becoming a Shramana, the Buddha trained with many masters and surpassed them all. His ascetical practice of self-mortification brought him to the threshold of starvation. And near dying, it suddenly occurred to him that such extreme deprivation was not the way, but just a different form of attachment and cause of suffering. The Buddha then wondered if there might be another path to awakening, and he recalled an experience from childhood. Once, as a little boy, during the annual spring plowing festival, he sat in solitude under a rose apple tree, observing the festivities. And he watched the plows turn up the earth and observed how birds swooped to feast on the helpless worms wriggling in the soil. He sat meditatively, moved by compassion, witnessing hunger, pain, and death, and sensing his own part in the interrelated web of life. For many Buddhist traditions, this story is significant in the event of the Buddha's awakening, for what it suggests about the levels of meditative awareness leading to nirvana. For Zen, this story is significant because of what it reveals about the Buddha's penetrating encounter with suffering, compassion, and loving interrelatedness with all of creation. After recalling how he felt under the rose apple tree, the Buddha glimpsed the middle way and accepted a bowl of rice gruel. His companions in asceticism abandoned him. Undeterred, he took a seat under the Bodhi tree and resolved to awaken. What did he realize? I want to focus on what we profess he said at the moment of his enlightenment. I and all beings and the whole great earth awaken together. Just as the boyhood Buddha had intuited his kinship with all beings, now, at the event of his awakening, this childhood revelation emerges in its fullness, where the insight is actualized in the experience of heartfully acknowledging himself as nature in human form. The Buddha would gift us with teachings and practices instructing us how to cultivate a similar liberative experience. The traditions gift us his teachings on karma and causality, that existence arises according to intercausal connectedness, which means our conduct, speech, and thought matter. The traditions gift us his teachings on the three marks of existence, anicca, that everything is impermanent because everything is interconnected. Anatta, that no self, no thing exists independent of its conditions, because each thing, each one of us, arises in and through relationship. And dukkha, not that life is suffering, but rather that life is experienced as suffering because we are ignorant of the true nature of things. The pinnacle of the Buddha's teaching, realized in his awakening, is often said to be the doctrine of pratitya samutpada, or dependent co-origination. In the early tradition, this was understood as the 12-fold chain of causation, which illustrated the arising and cessation of suffering. In the Mahayana, pratitya samutpada becomes emptiness in the Heart Sutra, shunyata in Zen, pointing to what the Buddha meant when he referred to himself shortly after his awakening as the Tathagata, the one attuned to reality. What does he mean by this? I, all beings, the whole great earth, together awaken. We are right now in this very moment, in the eventing of the earth's earthing, through the primordial forces of the universe, with every expansion and contraction, with each in-breath and each out-breath, participating in life's great awakening. Dogen, in his Mountains and Water Sutra, reminds us that awakening is the nature of nature. Mountains and waters right now are the actualization of the ancient Buddha way. Each, abiding in its phenomenal expression, realizes completeness. Because mountains and waters have been active since before the empty eon, they are alive at this moment. Because they have been the self since before form arose, they are emancipation realization. Dogen, like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, invites us to transform our perception of how we understand our place and role in the world. Nature is not the background of our existence, a resource for our becoming, a recreational space for us to find renewal. The heart mind that participates in awakening recognizes that we, and the whole great earth, together, are a council of beings in whom the universe shivers in wonder. In the book Journey of the Universe, authors Brian Swim and Mary Evelyn Tucker observe, with the emergence of humans, we have arrived at an evolutionary breakthrough for being able to develop compassion, not just for our offspring, but for all beings of every order of existence. With this alone, Earth gave rise to the possibility of an empathetic being who could flow into and become one with the intimate feelings of any being. Our human destiny is to become the heart of the universe that embraces the whole of the Earth community. This, I believe, is what it means to become Tathagata. To be attuned to reality is not to become someone other than you already are, but to transform your perception and experience of your capital S self. Awake to the source of your becoming. Thomas Berry once observed, Walt Whitman did not invent his sentience, nor was he wholly responsible for the form of feelings he experienced. Rather, his sentience is an intricate creation of the Milky Way, and his feelings are an evocation of being, an evocation involving thunderstorms, sunlight, grass, history, and death. Walt Whitman is a space the Milky Way fashioned to feel its own grandeur. And so is the Buddha. In the spirit of Rohatsu as we make effort to realize in our own lives the great awakening. Like the Buddha, we might do well to recall those moments under our own rose apple trees, where we first felt ourselves move in accord with all creation. So in the season of winter stillness, with longer nights, by the light and warmth of hearth fires, let us gather with others, wherever we are, and tell the love stories and poems of being transformed by the earth's love in us.